Stuff from YouTube.
Committee voting on anything.
I just have to do the roll call. Does anybody have anything to say?
Well, we would do that, then note it down to here.
Do we have anybody signed up for public comment?
We do not have a meeting to
I call the meeting to order at 5:01. Do we have anyone here for public comment?
We do not have anyone here for closing comment.
Okey-dokey. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes? Any comments? No? Make a motion to approve. Any motion to approve? Motion to approve. Do I have a second? Aye. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Approved.
Yes. Can I get the first and second again, please? Name, please,
David James for the motion.
and second.
Neil Patel for the second.
Thank you.
And we have some visitors today, so we're gonna have a little informal workshop discussion. You guys wanna
Thanks for swinging by.
start off? We'll let you guys have your piece.
Well, let me start as the mayor. First of all, thank you for serving on the commission. As you know, every 5 years we're required, at least every 5 years to see the commission. You know, mayor will go over your charge, and I think we're very met on, but basically it's to review all aspects of the charter. And then to talk to constituents, talk to the public, talk to council members, talk to staff about any changes that they think that they need more about the public than it is about us. I've gone through the charter again today 2 or 3 times. I don't have any comments. We made pretty substantial comments. The last time we convened this, I think Stuart was part of that charter review commission. I don't want that to mean that there's nothing that needs to be changed, but for me personally, as a mayor, certainly there's nothing in there that I see.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, same for me. 5 years ago, I went into the commission. I had a long list of things that I wanted the commission to look at, and I've reviewed everything, and I don't have anything today. Of course, there may be some state law changes and stuff like that that need to be done, but I don't have anything today like I had last time.
Thank you.
I'll just add in there, that we went through COVID during the time after it was reviewed last time, and things definitely changed after COVID. So maybe look at it at that. I have not read it like the mayor has multiple times today. But, we've done different things. We've done hybrid meetings recently, and because the state law allowed us to do it. But does that need to be into our charter? Do we need something like that? The other thing that came out of the last charter was, I was first elected. My term was 2 years, and many of us have served 2-year terms. And it went to the voters to allow us to have 3-year terms, and it's a relief. Because 2 years constantly running. I don't know how state representatives do it, but they do it. But something good that came out of that.
Yeah, and interestingly, when I was on the Charter Review Commission back in 2003, that was the #1 thing that the council members wanted our commission to look at, was going from 2 to 3 year terms. And boy, we completely filled the city halls and the other places at that time with people who were opposed to it. And it never even got out of the commission to anywhere. There was that much opposition. But so I said this last time, though, it passed. Yeah, got just fine. So it took an extra 21 years, but it got there.
It was on the charter in 2016.
Oh, well, in 2016? Oh.
It failed then.
Yeah.
So,
So twice it failed, but the third time was the charm. Should we go for 4?
Let's not.
No, let's not. No.
Three's good.
I'd like to build on what Nishad said and to say that, I think one of the things that, we tried to do last time, 5 years ago, but it's, amazing how much technology changes. We really need to update the charter to allow us to use technology to its best uses. Meetings and, notifications and whatever is available to us that will allow us to be more, transparent and more, able to to conduct our business in a more modern and expedited way. So that's what I have.
Speaking of updating technology, at the next meeting, can we correct my name to Daniel?
Oh.
As you were talking, I just looked up and went, oh.
Last time we changed your name to David at the last charter commission.
Oh, okay. I must have missed that real quick.
That's AI at work.
Oh, there we go, there we go.
So Daniel, I just want you and the team to know how much I appreciate your commitment to this. Because Sugarland, and I use this all the time, but it's sweet. Because people like you have taken the time out of your lives to invest. And then we come back behind your recommendations and we do all that we can to support you. And I think it's apparent from all 7 of us being here tonight that we 100% support your effort here. And
Except for food.
right.
You mean?
And so I just stand ready to do and answer whatever we can do to help. That's my role here. So I'm here to learn.
Thank you.
I also don't have any recommended changes, just feedback that I think the 3-year terms do work better versus the 2-year. I've experienced both, so that's my feedback on that.
Well, I guess it's my turn. They've said everything that was there. AI and technology is a huge thing. But other than that, there's nothing that I see or read that needs to be changed in here. I would kind of like to ask if there's anything that y'all have for us. Do y'all have questions for us that we're a very transparent and open group, so we're here for those questions.
Mr. James, you had the list.
Well, I had a few.
Y'all have a list.
There we go. That was new. I read over this, Mayor, the other night and came up with some questions. So I think, and maybe this was under the bucket of, what would you change? But specifically kind of triggers, I was thinking, given where the city of Sugar Land is in its life cycle, remember seeing that in the Mobility Task Force and things about life cycle of a city. Is there anything in the charter that we should be considering and given where the city of Sugar Land is in that life cycle? Does that trigger any thoughts or any differences? And I guess kind of likewise is, are there any emerging trends that we see out there, you see in other cities? So someone mentioned technology, but anyway, does that trigger any thoughts? Is there something in the life cycle of the city? Is there something you've seen in other cities that, oh, that's a good idea? So open line right there.
May I ask, Meredith and Shay, is there anything in our charter that prevents us from doing the kind of zoning work that we need to do the redevelopment, for instance, in our
No, our charter is actually very broad. And so it requires you to have a charter commission. It sets the minimum number of members that you can have. Other than that, it says they follow state law. So.
But I mean, is there anything in the charter regarding zoning and such that would make it more difficult for us to do the redevelopment that we're working on?
No, the charter only says that you have a planning and zoning commission.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And it has the minimum number, and it says you will follow state law. There are no handcuffs, so to speak,
Okay.
as far as what
I
they
see.
can and cannot do.
Same with the zoning board.
I'm slow.
It doesn't develop.
So if you read it 4 or 5 times,
I must be Canadian.
Go ahead, sir.
On that, I actually had some notes. I'm kind of in the HOA industry. We're noticing trends of multifamily corporate owners taking over neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Is that something that we can address here to kind of like ask that there should be something put in, like, there's a limit to how many Airbnbs there can be in a neighborhood, or, HOA4rent.com, I know a property where they have 20 houses in a neighborhood and they're out of Vegas and they have no local representation. So is there something that we can discuss here, or is that just not our realm to discuss? How can we legally say, hey, we don't want multifamily, we don't want commercial owners coming in and buying half a neighborhood, because if you drive down Highway 6, just past Sienna, there's an entire neighborhood of nothing but rental homes. And there's 2 of those that I'm aware of. And that's kind of the trend that I'm seeing in the real estate industry. Do we want to allow that here, or do we want to try and keep it as a family-friendly neighborhood where it's not run by corporate America?
So I have a question. What problems does that generate?
So.
Sorry, can I just add to what you're saying? Because in my neighborhood, and I live in First Colony, so it's an old neighborhood, it's very established, and it's very concerning. It's very concerning because they can choose to maintain the property as they wish. That being said, you can always say, the homeowners association, but the fact is the homeowners association can only issue letters and warnings. That's about it. After which, so to answer your question, what's the problem? The problem is it's going to affect our property values. It's going to affect, the reason I moved to Sugar Land is because of the schools. Right? It's because of the type of people that live in Sugar Land. Sugar Land is not a cheap city to live in. It's the type of people that live in Sugar Land and own those houses, right? That's how we determine the neighborhood we live in. So does that answer your question? I can be more specific, at least from my point of view.
Actually, if I may interrupt, this is a very good conversation, and I think it's one that needs to occur, but this is not the room to have it in. I am going to ask our planning director, Lisa Kochik-Meyer, if she could watch this part of the video and do this. This is a planning department type thing and a discussion that maybe they could put forward a task force. So today.
We've had discussions on that before, on something, so.
So, but what your charge is the charter. The charter is kind of the incorporation documents. It's basically the bylaws of how the city can operate. It is not necessarily, and it could be, but I would recommend against the day-to-day. You come in at 8, you eat breakfast at your office, you walk across the hall, you get your coffee at 10:15. It's pretty broad. It's like you will have a planning and zoning commission. You will have council members. They will serve X number of terms. This is how they can be recalled. This is how you call an election. These are the offices you have. So it's more of the fundamental constitution, so to speak, of the city, as opposed to more of a zoning issue that would be handled through a P&Z type situation or a task force with the planning department. So I recognize your concerns, and I will ask Lisa to listen to that, but this isn't the right forum for that.
Thank you.
There's 3 documents that govern that. One's a comprehensive plan, the development code and zoning regulations. And those are the areas that you all have recommended.
So we couldn't add something to the charter that says the city should proactively work to keep this as a family-friendly neighborhood through certain, like not letting certain commercial businesses in, like whatever.
That would be a zoning
Okay.
situation.
Can we work, so it's specific to your point, Daniel, can we work that into the charter? It's not.
No, that is a zoning provision, and this is the charter documents does not go that far into detail. If we were to do something of that nature, it might be in the comprehensive plan, but that is such a different process than the process we're doing now. That's not your charge, that's correct.
Okay.
Your charge here is to look at the existing charter. You can look at the model charter. Essentially, I can pull charters from any city you could ever imagine in the United States, and a few in Canada actually have some halfway decent charters that I've found, and I'm willing to share all of those with you, but we need to keep in mind that the charter is basically the bylaws and, the incorporating document. It's the city's constitution. In addition to the charter, we have the code of ordinances, the development code. Those are the bodies of documents that get into such details. So the charter is what goes to the citizens for vote on, and council members have the ability to pass all ordinances that go into the code of ordinance, the development code. We'll get to a later chapter. There is the right to petition for an ordinance, and so that is a later chapter that'll be extra. And I believe
The
it's
development and redevelopment is city council.
in planning and zoning, but that is a totally different evening, totally different group of people, and you've got the wrong attorneys in the room for that. Yeah, we're specialized attorneys for that. We're your ethics, employment law.
Okay, so then back to the charter.
Yes,
So-
please.
So coming back to the charter then, was there any, I guess we touched, I haven't heard anything that says there's some things we could be more effective, efficient, but I noticed some of the roles perhaps or boards and commissions aren't all listed here. Is there any advantage in listing more of the boards and commissions in the thing?
If charter would.
Or would that be help you guys at all? But I guess it would,
David, we have the ability right now to form such boards and not now. The zoning board of adjustment and planning and zoning commission are by statute.
okay,
And that's why they're in here. But then we have an economic development committee.
Yeah.
We have a budget and finance committee. We have the ability to form committees in order to break out smaller groups of council members so that we don't have a forum and have those conversations with whatever departments we need. The city manager also has the ability through his authority to have citizen committees, to be empowered. We used it for park bond referendum. That was a city manager designated committee. There were multiple groups. I think some of you may have even served on some of that, but we have, and I've been doing this now 9 years or 8 years as mayor and 4 years on council and 8 years as on the planning and zoning commission. We've got a pretty effective framework under which to operate if for whatever would come up in the city, in my opinion.
okay, and I think that you addressed it because that was kind of my question. Is there anything that can help make you all more effective, efficient? And the answer is not really. That's all I'm hearing at this point.
One thing I would bring up, and there might be a little bit of a difference of opinion. During COVID, the governor issued an order, and that order was what allowed us to have virtual meetings. I would tell you from my perspective, a virtual meeting is not nearly as effective as in person. I'm not a virtual meeting kind of guy. Yet, I think there's real value in having people come to City Hall, come into the council chambers, voice their opinion. We very often, I think it says 3 minutes, up to, 8 or 9 people. We waive that fairly often. If there's value in having additional minutes, certainly we can do that. So, and we've done that in the past and we'll continue to do it. So I think the value in having people in the transparency issue, I think it's important that they see us on the dais. I think it's important that they hear the discussion on the dais, irrespective of, executive session where it occurs offline, but most of the business of the city is done out on that dais, and in my opinion, it needs to remain that way.
And the mayor has made a very good point about changes during the COVID based on the Governor Abbott's thing. So as we go through this, there are some areas that are covered by other state laws, such as when you can hold meetings based on a governor's order. So as we go through and you talk about the different changes, Shay and I will also let you know if that's already covered in state law or if that's contrary to state law. So the mayor just reminded me I needed to do that, yes. So we will go over that when you get to the topic, you make a suggestion and say, yes, there's an example from different charters, or that's already covered in state law, we're not allowed to touch it.
Okay.
So we will, thank you for reminding me, Mayor.
So I had a couple more, but why don't I yield and see if anybody else has got some questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So in our first meeting, you mentioned that we're not to speak among ourselves in private.
Correct.
Is that correct? In the review that I did, it states that we need to go out in public and get basically, I don't want to call it, just the temperature or have meetings with the public. HOA meetings, I'm not quite sure what it would. As old members of the committee, what did you guys do as far as go out and get?
Yeah.
So we have, if I can use the insight as to how that works. So we're allowed to talk individually to the members of the public. Matter of fact, as long as we don't have a forum, and we don't typically do that, we're all very conscious of the fact that we've got an Open Meetings Act. But for example, Suzanne, Carol, Nishad, Stewart, as district council members, are very connected with people in their district, and they can solicit input. Or at-large council members the same way. And we're unusual in that even though we have 4 district seats, which are elected by the people in our district, for as long as I've been on council, and as long as I've been involved with council, going back into the early nineties, we've always made decisions not based on what a council member wants for their district. It's been what's best for the city of Sugar Land, all the citizens, not just District 3 or 2 or 1 or 4. And so council members have the ability to go out in their district. They have contact people, contact them all the time. Same with William and Jennifer as the two at large. Same with myself. We all have people that we rely on to provide us, feedback. And that's what I guess we're encouraging you to do is those people that you have relationships with, feel free to reach out to, friends, neighbors, anybody that, we're encouraging you to have those conversations to see if there's an itch that somebody needs to get scratched with regard to the charter. And I'll give you an example from the last charter commission. There was been a lot. The term of the elections. So the 3-year versus the 2-year, gosh, it failed. Going way back to when Thompson went. He put it on multiple times and it failed. It was only this last time that people said, I think we'd be willing to consider 3-year terms. In fact, they passed it. There were times when the commission actually wouldn't put it on the referendum because they viewed it as being, they got so much feedback against it. They said, well, it's not going to pass anymore.
Well, so kind of building on that, are there some key stakeholders out there that you think are groups or something that we should be talking to that, I think of the, Chamber of Commerce or the Economic Development Group or whatever, are there key constituents or groups that we should be reaching out to, or is that our discussion to come up with?
Well, let me kind of clarify a little bit. So these meetings are open to the public and we have the public comment where we ask the public to come and provide comments. But we are publicizing, we are putting out press releases. I believe we notified the HOA that we're putting applications out there. It's on our website. So we are reaching out to our community partners. So, and we have absolutely hope that you would also reach out to community partners and discuss this with them. My email, I guess, was not so clear, and I apologize, as far as discussing it amongst ourselves, because then you have a quorum and it's a walking forum and it's an open meetings act. So you can talk to less than a quorum of us group, this group, and you can talk to anybody in the public.
Okay.
Right, so it's like the reply to all your walking forum and you have an open meetings act violation, but we definitely, as the mayor says, encourage you to go out. If you want us to notify a board or commission that we have.
Now, go out individually or go out as a group?
You'd have to individually because I can't have a quorum of you all walking around. But if you want it to be a group, we can certainly invite those individuals as we have invited the council to come.
Yeah.
So the public comment at the beginning of the meeting is for the public to come and give their input to you. It's our invitation to them to say, hey, this is what we're talking about, please come in. And as you can see, there's not been much interest tonight. So if there's certain people you'd like us to invite, and we can certainly put out more press releases and try to make it more obvious as to what you're doing, but this is usually a pretty dry topic.
Well, but I guess I was asking, was there, from you all's standpoint, are there some key constituents that you think it might be interesting to hear from them?
The thing is that, last time around, we handled just about everything that we handled were the most controversial or public interest issues. Everything that you're gonna be working on now, unless you want to reopen the idea of the terms and all that, council terms and such, it's gonna be pretty dry.
Yeah.
And as soon as you start talking, if you hold an open forum or something, you're gonna get people asking about zoning. But now that you all are the experts on this, I think you're gonna find it very technical. I found it very rewarding, by the way, but I think you're gonna find it very technical, not really for general consumption. It's not really of interest that much.
Our citizens to be able to provide valuable input to you, they really need to have thoroughly read and understood the charter, which takes time, and not everybody has that interest and level to get
That's
to
right.
speed like that.
Okay.
Probably the most controversial things that this board has looked at over the years is the term limits and then the percentages for recall petitions.
Yeah.
That has been up each time. And only the last time in 2018 did it actually, 2018, the 2018 commission, it was in 2020 when the election, but that's the first time we've had changes passed. So that is probably the two most controversial. And as you know, from the team in front of you who gets through the year for 3 years, that part passed. As with the percentages, but if you want to look at that again, that is probably the most controversial that has been from the board since I've done my research going back to the adoption of the first charter.
I do have a question. What is the cost for an election to the city? So we,
It's around $78,000
so
general.
if we were to discuss going from 3 to 4 year, and that aligns with other.
You got, I mean,
We were told 30,000.
Yeah, it's usually with our contract with the county, it's less than 50, that hardly ever goes to council unless we have a runoff, so it has to be under 50 because y'all don't have to vote.
I was kind of looking as a cost saving of adjusting it to be in line with other elections so that we don't have special elections on weird years and it's just kind of cheaper for the city.
we've always done a May election, as opposed to November.
Okay,
I would tell you that the May election, in my opinion, keeps the focus on local government
okay,
as opposed to getting tied up with the presidential election like we have this year,
yeah.
where everything gets overwhelmed by what's going on at the federal level. You can't get any attention at the local level.
That's a good point, Ken.
But the trade-off is the number of people voting, right?
Voting, yeah.
It is a trade-off, David, and that's the reason that in the past, they've taken recommendations from the Charter Review Commission and done it in a mayoral election year with the at-large, because the turnout in a mayoral year normally is more than what you have in a district. This is a district year.
Mm-hmm.
And then next year would be, mayor and at-large. And then if there's an open seat, next year will be a high turnout because it's an open seat for the mayor.
Yeah.
So it will drive voters, yes, sir.
Don't you feel that if we were to change from a May to the November election, that we would get more people out voting and we'll have better results and things of that nature, that people higher chances of.
You'll have more results, but you won't have better results.
Right, because the thing is, in May, you've got your school board and
Right.
your city council, so that is your local, and like I say. when
But the
you-
amount of people that voting will go down.
Right, but their quality, they are informed voters. The people who go to the polls in November, in May to vote, they have researched their candidates. They know, they are there to vote for city council members, vote for school board members. They have done their research.
Okay.
If you move it to November, I said, you're gonna get caught up, I said, particularly in a presidential election, people are so, caught up as a presidential and all these other, the judges and the county commissioner and the sheriffs and all the stuff like that. People will not even hardly know about council. And then you'll have people just voting just to, they'll go through pages of the ballot.
If they like it,
If they make it to the ballot.
Yeah, if they even make it there, if they even make it, then they do like, oh, okay, this name sounds okay, and then you'll have low information, you'll have a lot of low information voters voting, and that is not a good thing, which is why we have it in May.
Another consideration that I've always thought is, I think that the fact that in Texas, municipal elections are nonpartisan, I think that's just amazing.
Yes.
But it'll be too tempting. You're not always gonna have 7 perfect council members like you have now. It would be too tempting for someone who is running in November to identify with maybe the
Party is-
Apolitical
Yeah,
party.
the party, right, the majority party in the county, and then suddenly you bring in all kinds of
Right.
nastiness that we don't have here
Right,
in the city.
Right, and school board also is nonpartisan, so it is a great point, right up, Stuart. So we have our nonpartisan elections in May, and then you've got the partisan in November. And it's really, I think, important to keep them separated like we have.
Good point, yeah.
Agreed.
You want to hit the rest of your topics?
I think I'm pretty much. I'm pretty good, thank you.
The city manager apologizes. He's got something else going on. He's unable to come and join us.
He enjoyed it.
Yeah, he just sent his apologies. He's still working.
He's having towards your topics.
And I think that he would prefer that.
So I guess I'll summarize what I've heard then is, given all the recent events, things are calm.
Yes.
In terms of emerging trends, I heard a little bit around maybe technology in terms of the life cycle of the city. He liked currently the way the charter is structured gives the flexibility for planning and zoning and those other appropriate boards and commissions to deal with things. Thank you for clarifying, the boards, commissions that are listed are there by state, statute.
The statute requires us to
Okay,
adopt
statute.
that.
Whereas the other ones, you obviously got the flexibility in name and everything, so you've got the flexibility you need there. So that there's nothing the charter would help you with there, so it's not a lot of effectiveness or efficiency that's missing from your, preventing you guys from doing what you, for the city of Sugar Land, what you should be doing, so.
Right.
That's the way my takeaway. And you like May elections versus November. I take
Yes.
that.
Yes. Hands down.
We fought for May elections, because if you go back, when I first, well, even before I got in as mayor, we had some state representatives that were really wanting to push everybody into the November elections. Because what you have going on now at the state is an erosion of local control. And so many of the powers since I've been mayor in 2016, the legislature meets every other year. Founding fathers are smart enough to know that you don't want them to meet every year. They can't say we're screw stuff out now. Every other year they meet, and it's been pretty much a constant barrage. I've been now, this is my fourth, I guess, legislative session, 16, 18, 20, 22. And they continue to erode the power of local government. And that, in my opinion, is the closest government to the people. MUDs, cities, to have that power taken away, I don't think serves all residents very well. And the state can't help. Like, there's about 1,600 cities in the state of Texas, 254 counties. They can't even figure out their own budget, much less our budget.
And Neil, I don't think any of us on council want to poke the hornet's nest and try for 4-year terms.
No, absolutely.
Yeah,
That was a joke.
that would be a gut-wrenching nightmare.
Whoa.
No, come on, guys.
It's not, I mean, it's not, I didn't take it as a joke, because actually the model thing talked about 4 years, because it allows a little bit easier,
No.
And it took 21 years to get it to from 2 to 3.
Oh, it's
Well,
I wanted to know this time.
I was telling Miss Wally lifetime.
What was different in
That's
the
a
last
sentence.
charter commission than all the ones that failed before?
Probably because you weren't on the committee.
That's exactly right. Thank you.
Oh, is that, oh, you want us to give praise to you or
Yes,
something? Oh,
thank you.
okay,
Please
thanks.
pat him on the back for me.
Okay, thank you, Stuart. You did a great job. We appreciate you. Okay.
Make sure that's in the minutes.
Yeah.
Hey, I would like to pile on top of what they've already said, and you've heard 50 times, I think, right here. Then the fact that our city is nonpartisan is one of the things that makes our city special. The last thing that I want, William Ferguson wants for the future of Sugar Land is it become this partisan control, left, right, whatever, right? That's not my, our issue should be those that are most concerned with the issues of the city, they will vote. They will show up in May and they will vote. Whatever the issue on the table is for the year, they will vote. Those are the people that are extremely special. Sometimes that number may be only 20,000 of 120,000, but yours is great. They're informed, they're educated, they're emotional. You come on and bring it. The people in November where the city becomes an afterthought. And I can't say it any better than that. It's hard enough to get people to vote, but the ones in May, those are real voters. Those are people that are going, this is my city, my town, and I'm gonna vote for it. So I certainly support what I've heard here. Don't make it partisan.
Okay. Anybody else have anything you want to bring up? I think that will conclude our workshop with the city.
Yes, sorry. I just have a question on this. Are we on for it here? So I need to know.
Yeah, we have it up there yet. We're still on page, we're still on page seven.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay, I guess the workshop's over. Thank you guys for coming, and ladies.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Appreciate your time and your service.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for service.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
That's probably the shortest meetings you've been to, huh?
We're okay with that. I thought the meeting was pretty short, but then the executive session.
Yeah, all right, we'll see you later. Go here. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Good to see you guys. Take care. See ya. Thank you. Till next time.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you.
Now we can talk about it.
Now, hold on.
All you want.
Come
on, Carol.
Thank you.
We're gonna go to section B, review and discussion on Article 1 of the City of Sugar Land Charter.
So was there any debrief from any, other than what I was trying to summarize, any good insights or any ahas or that?
What I kind of got was they really are okay with term limits. They don't really want to change anything on that area. I did get a couple of feelers that they were interested in allowing them to use technology more effectively.
Yeah.
And that our general redevelopment as a whole question is to be handled by a different committee.
Yeah.
Anybody get anything different?
And they want to keep the elections separate.
Yes, they want to keep the elections.
At
Keep
the
it.
point of being bipartisan.
Yeah, bipartisan.
Bipartisan was a really good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And also.
I mean, look at Harris County. They're partisan.
Yeah.
So it's a mess in
Yeah.
Harris County. So we are lucky that we are not partisan. We are not partisan.
Yeah, and I honestly didn't realize that the cost of an election was that low.
Well, it depends. And Ashley could probably tell us more because that's kind of her purview. But because we do a joint election with the county, the school boards and everything else, and because we now have countywide voting, as opposed to each district having their own section,
Yeah.
we pool the costs. So it has actually, you would think it would have gone down, but of course, as the cost of living goes up, obviously it went up.
Right.
But because we could share the cost among multiple entities, it's great.
Okay.
And because it's countywide voting, that means we were also sharing the cost with other cities. If they happen to have something at the same time as us, we get to knock it down a little bit. So it used to be much more expensive. But because we have countywide and you can go anywhere you want in Fort Bend County, this helped us tremendously cost-wise.
I think it also helps. It's good, the cost factor obviously is everything is driven by cost. But it's more so about the voter turnout. And clubbing it like this makes it, it impacts the voter turnout. Because I like to vote, it's my duty. But it's quite a juggle to come, I mean, I don't know what other people's schedules are like, but it's quite a juggle to go out and vote, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Article 1.
Okay, let someone else go before I go in because I've got one on.
So this is a very short one. This is gonna be the easiest one you have out of all of them. I can tell you that when you get to Article 2 and 3, those are the most exciting ones. Those are the ones where you're gonna start getting into the controversy that has been over the years. So this is just basically the introduction. Hey, this is how we go. There's really not a whole lot that you would probably want to change. I did a little bit of research just for fun because that's kind of what I like to do. And this really hasn't changed significantly. It's over 2 times since 1981, when it was originally adopted. In 2004, we had voters approve propositions for annexation and limited purpose annexation state law change. And it was no longer in free for all. I think some of you may have heard of a little town called Kingwood. And so as a result, state law required certain action. So that was passed in 2004. And before that, it was 1986. So for the first 5 years or so of being home rule, they had a city council running it, and then they switched to a city manager type format. And that has been the only, other than formatting, have been the only changes to Article 1. So this is just really kind of like a get your feet wet kind of article. But the next one is a doozy.
Go ahead. I have a motion, but I've been asking questions on this turn.
And this is more of clarification question before I go forward. But, so I'm looking at section 1.03, I think general powers, number E. Is there, would you mind explaining it in the 50 years? You want it?
I kind of think, well, that may be there because it's required by state law. But also I think if you had a franchise last too long, would that be inappropriate, like a real estate interest that we're giving away?
So the city basically, we don't do long-term leases. I think the longest one we actually have is one that we have with U of H, and we're leasing from them for 99 years. And that's because we're building a park. But typically you do not want to tie up city property longer than you have to. And a lot of utilities, and cable companies, and going back to Southwestern Bell, they want to get in and be done forever and never have to leave. You want to have an opportunity to come back and look at that contract again, make changes, update it for state law. And half the time this was adopted 50 years was what state law said you can do up to. So,
So my question is, what have you seen as most effective from what you've seen with other cities? What's most effective?
this is a little bit outdated, because state law has changed and a lot of them are allowed to be there by right now, and they don't require a franchise. So, small cells, and a lot of times, fiber, you may see, yes, okay, I'm sure, yes. Fiber, small cells, and so state law has changed, and a lot of them are allowed by right. They can come and pull a permit from us, but we cannot prohibit them from being there because the PUC has said, betcha, you get to go there. We actually have a lawsuit pending where we're saying we want you to pay for it. You know, somebody gave the city this property, there's a value to it. You can't be here for free. And we're 4 years in, 5 years in, and statewide, and we're not looking so good, but we're still saying, hey, if you're gonna come rent some space, you ought to pay for it.
Right.
So this is maybe a provision that you might think about having removed, because it is outdated and we don't do consent agreements anymore.
So so thank you for that, for educating me. I don't know, I apologize if you all already know this.
This is my favorite part of my job, so please ask.
So then if we remove it, what do we put in place to have some controls?
You could put a different year there, or you could just delete it entirely. I can come back for your next meeting and tell you exactly what utilities are allowed by right, and see if I can find one that we'd even be able to enter into a franchise with.
So that's utilities. What's all company? Because that's broad, right?
That would go back to like cable, television, back.
So it's utilities. Like if you look at it, it's electricity, basic.
That's that thing that runs to your backyard, and sometimes it runs up to your house, and it's Xfinity comes in, or they take it all out. Your alarm company comes in, they come off, they have to run their own personal line because there's a special. But this is basically whether it be cable, telephone, if people still have landlines, if you still have a hardwired alarm connection. And in the cable chain, that's one of the people we have a lawsuit pending with, is we're saying that because you're not the utility, you're providing a payment that you should pay, and we're not doing so good on that because state law said, no, it's a freebie. So let us do some research and see if we can even find somebody that does not have an automatic right into the right of way. And this may just be surplus, I can't say right now, extra, and we can take it because you can recommend deletion to city council. It would not require a vote because it'd be a housekeeping item in accordance with state law changes.
And I'm a great believer in trying to limit utilities coming in and just tearing everything up. And they use a subcontractor who hires a subcontractor. And then they show up on a Saturday, they're done by Monday.
Right.
And they're gone. And by the time you figure out who it was, they've dissolved their LLC, created a new LLC, and on to the next job.
All right, cool.
We will look into that and see if there's anybody that is in the right of way that is still required to get a franchise.
Okay, so possibly remove it, and you'll recommend any new language, if any.
Yeah.
To do it. Okay, cool. So I kind of asked about F, the next one. Well,
I was gonna go, I don't want to be the only one.
No,
talking.
well, no,
No,
well,
go for it.
the next one, I just picking up on the technology thing. Talks about cable television, what about satellite, fiber optics, what about internet? So without getting to listing all technologies, maybe does telecommunications cover all that stuff? Because we list cable TV, so maybe over pedantic, but there's satellite TV now and all that stuff, so.
So, we're in a meeting. Yes, this is a charter review. Would you like to sit in? Okay, have a seat down there, please.
So I will say this at the end, we do have the language for similar service, which kind of is like a catch-all.
That catches all?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm fine.
I think in the future, as far as cable network is concerned, I think fiber optic is pretty much the future, and I feel that we should switch more towards fiber optic than anything else. I feel that, all the other, and obviously underground as much as possible.
We do have that requirement. The only place we get into trouble is that, the utility poles,
Yeah,
they can contact with them directly, leave us out, and all of a sudden these things show up. And we have no ability to regulate them because it's not our fault. But an example of how this works is that on the council agenda for the 20th, there's gonna be a resolution whereby council is accepting the settlement that a coalition of cities came to for percentage point rates. So last October or November, we passed a resolution freezing it for 90 days, allowing the city and our outside consultants time to go ahead and negotiate and make sure those fees are what they ask. So they keep asking, we want more, we want rate raises. This allows us to participate and say, no, stop. We're gonna argue, like I said, we belong to a coalition of 30 cities, 40 cities. Yeah, a huge coalition of cities. We all share the costs and we all beat up Center Point at the same time with Atmos or Synergy whenever they come in. So this allows us to fight that each time. So I will strongly oppose any suggestion of deleting this provision because I want the council to continue to have the ability to negotiate lower rates. I mean, they're still gonna get you, but we have postponed them for 90 days and chip away a little bit till they come back again.
Like I'm looking and I see taxi cab, bus.
We deleted that this past year, so we can take that out.
as far as, I'm sorry, I'm
No, please ask. Ed. 12 of 14?
because I was gonna say something about the taxi cab and
Yeah,
bus and.
that's in one F, that's
Yeah, so
way down here.
the word taxi cab and bus has been removed.
Oh, yes, I think that should be because we deleted the taxi cab ordinance because we haven't had a permit for a taxi cab in over 7 years.
Okay, so what about Uber and Lyft and all the other alternatives?
We don't have the ability under state law to regulate those. We've been preempted.
Okay, and then what about bus lines? Like Metro coming in with bus service, which,
A lot of people in the Sugar Land area work in downtown and things of that nature. So people work far from home and everybody can commute. I mean, they can, but I'm saying it's a lot easier if we had some form of public transportation within the city, if we had a bus or we had a train or something.
well, my argument would be like the movie theater is a park and ride. But do we really want regular bus service from Metro?
For Metro,
I don't
It
think
would-
we're big enough.
it would be nice if we had a park and ride, if we had a park and ride.
Okay, but is that-
Metro.
Is that beyond a chart? I guess is that beyond the charter?
Well, maybe it's-
The mobility task force.
Yeah,
has
now we
this
talk
one-
about that.
And as far as bringing Metro, you're talking about a whole other contractual agreement, financial investment, and as your colleague has said, we're not large enough to meet that threshold. They're not interested in coming out here. Well, we have a parking right over here, it said at the movie theater. I thought there were parking spots at U of H across from Spring Financial. There should be a
Well,
couple of.
not necessarily Metro, but we could have our own that is more readily accessible for people to use and they can connect.
Many years
that to
ago, we had
Metro.
the
So we
little
should have
trolley
that,
buses.
the mobility task
Yes.
force.
the-
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, many years ago, the city had trolley buses that kind of ran around like this general area.
Okay,
My memory is they just really did, because you still have to drive here to get here.
right, that's what I'm saying.
And then,
It
then it was like,
defeats-
why am I gonna get on the bus to go to the other side of the mall when I can just
Exactly,
walk through the mall?
Right,
So the trolley bus is just kind of
It-
faded away.
Right.
So we could leave transportation in
Yeah.
and then talk to the mobility task force and see if I guess it's a.
Because I was watching-
Task force, but add that to their task list when we convene them, but.
Because I was watching a video on YouTube with Florida, who has gone like, has built an actual, I'm not saying we do the same thing, they've built a new train station. And they have trains going to each and every city now in Florida, and it has.
That would be a state level thing. Like the Texas,
Right, but what I'm saying is, having something within the city for some form of public transport would be very convenient, would be very beneficial for individuals.
Actually,
especially
the city
the-
does, it's called the hike and bike trail.
So if I can just say something here, so both of us were on the mobility, this is all covered, it like very, very much in
It's been adopted
extreme
by council.
detail to the traffic lights.
I don't think it's a charter
Cyclists,
issue.
right, yeah, it's not, but coming to what you said about, Uncle Ed, I totally agree with it, particularly with with Xfinity that has a monopoly in Sugarland, and we just can't do anything about it. So I know the city has tried a lot getting, so I second having it, keeping it in place.
Okay, and recommend deleting taxi cab bus and adding fiber? Or do we think that
I think
telecommunications
to keep
includes
it
that?
broad, because
Broad, yeah.
tomorrow something else will come up.
We should have fiber.
But would you consider that being included in telecommunications, or does it need to be listed?
That's included.
Yeah, just
Telecommunications.
We want to keep it broad enough that
Yeah.
someone's not going, well, that says this. It's just-
Well, what about transportation? What's
Whatever
like transportation, since you got taxi and.
Television out there, but that's.
Yeah.
You're right.
I think we leave it.
Transportation's broad.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we can leave taxi and bus and leave transportation.
Yeah, they'll television.
Yeah, it's like-
Can we give solid waste?
Yeah.
Can we just put it?
No. I'm sorry, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Wait, that is our one franchise, I just remembered. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. So, okay, even with the solid waste, and this is a question, can we keep it at waste? Because
Well,
solid waste, I don't know what's the definition of
solid waste would be the trash service that comes to your door or to your driveway. Waste would be what? Would be the water plant, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I believe it's.
Sewage treatment.
I'm sorry?
That'd be like sewage treatment.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so you have two different, you have a wet waste and you have the solid waste.
Yeah, that'd be like wet
We
waste.
do have one franchise in the city, and that is with, Republic.
Yeah, they've got, what they use the health board.
do you think keep it at solid waste or keep it at waste?
State law defines solid waste, but you also have liquid waste and other types of waste, and we're not, those are different state laws.
That's why I asked the question, can we put it at waste? Because then it's a broad, it's like
Right.
transportation covers your cabs, buses,
Right.
whatever else, tomorrow,
Everything.
some flying drones, it covers everything.
Yeah.
That's where I'm coming from for waste.
I hear you. Let us research and find out what TCQ lets us. I know that we have to have provisions to allow us to do the franchise for solid waste. Let me see if we are required to do this for the other haulers. And if we are or not, we'll get you information. I love research.
And real quick, under state law, telecommunications and cable are actually different things, so we just.
Okay.
Okay, that's why it's separate.
So we'll take television, but just leave the word cable.
And
Yeah, you can take out television and cable.
Yeah, telecommunications, cable.
Yeah.
And telecommunications covers, and, pardon me, I just wanted to make sure it's covered. It covers the internet, the Wi-Fi, telecommunications.
Internet,
The
talking
internet.
about internet.
It does cover, yeah.
Yeah, I believe so. I can, when I meant, I can look at the FCC definition.
Yeah, it's just because it's,
No, please ask questions. I love to research. So the more research I get.
just a question on, on telecommunications and actually cable as well. Because with Xfinity, they bundle the whole thing up and we just don't have a choice.
I believe those are actually defined by state law. I think it's chapter 66 and chapter 283.
So just the definition so that we're.
So I think the intent is, how do we make this, make sure we're broad as to recognize the ever-changing technologies?
So we don't have to, yeah, so we don't have to keep making changes every 5
Yeah,
years.
so how do we make it broad enough to be encompassing of those?
Well, I think what I'm hearing is they're gonna do the research, they'll come back to us with an answer, but we've kind of I think we've beaten this section to death. Let's keep going. 104, garnishment and execution.
State issued cable and video franchise, it's the final.
No,
I don't
no
think there's
questions.
anything there,
Yeah.
yeah, we can move through.
Okay. A and B, everybody good?
Yep.
Okay, 105, charter commission.
Just a question, clarification. So are there any amendments allowed without a charter commission? Or you have to have a charter commission to make an amendment to the charter? There was something about section 901 in the model that talked about amendments, or there's some
So,
language around it.
You had asked about Plano, and I went, and interestingly, Plano does not have a requirement to meet. Their last election was in 93, the last charter commission was in 93, but in 2011, they had a city initiated, so they still went to the voters, but they didn't have a charter commission. So we can actually appoint city council's charter commission, you can appoint one employee to be charter commission.
Okay.
You can also do a referendum. I don't know if you've seen in other cities, there was at one point in our city, somebody tried to put a prohibition, red light cameras, and then somebody else tried to do a petition related to zoning, but that gets into a whole other thing about zoning not being in your charter, and all kinds of fun stuff. But you don't have to have a charter commission. It can be done by a petition, but you cannot have a charter election more often than every 2 years. That is state law. But if you wanted to put a petition together or a charter committee every 2 years, you can put on the ballot every 2 years.
Well, I just noticed there was a proposal, that there was a section 901 in the model that talked about amendments, and it seemed like there was other ways to make amendments than just the charter commission. So I just wondered, was there any advantage to providing other alternatives to making amendments? That was kind of my question.
I guess it depends on the level of amendment, because, non-substantive provisions are provided for
Right.
in 1.07.
Yeah.
Moved it like a taxi cab and bus.
But I guess,
We'll look at that
Yeah.
language and we'll bring it back to the next meeting.
So, yeah, I guess that's the question. Would it help, or is it more hinder if we had alternates for that 9.01? Oh, thank you.
So maybe where it says, as often as it deems necessary by state law, but not less than every 5 years, in case state law changes. Because right now it just says, as often as deems necessary, but it doesn't state your comment that we can't do it.
No, you can't have a charter election more than every 2
Okay.
years, but you can, I think San Antonio had the standing charter committee.
Okay, so that's a separate, okay. Cross that note off. Okay, anybody else? 106, severability. That's pretty much standard legal, whatever they recommend, I'll go with.
Okay.
107.
It's straightforward.
I mean, that basically gives them the right to make decisions.
Yeah.
No comment.
108, full purpose annexation.
No comment.
No comment.
The only thing is, I believe there was a state law recently passed that before a city may annex, the members of the area get to vote on it.
You can be annexed by petition or by election.
But if you're annexed by petition and the election is against it, does it deny the petition?
So the petition must be signed by a certain percentage of landowners. Most likely your petition is going to be vacant land. You're gonna have the election if you have voters.
Okay.
It's better that
Well,
way.
Okay,
It's like the recent property right off, the 980 acres, or it gets bigger, kind of citizen, between 900. But right off of the going towards Richmond and Georgia,
Mhm.
and that they petitioned, but they petitioned the MPJ.
okay,
And they will be petitioning the city limits once they reach a certain dollar amount.
okay. Okay, so we're good with that. Anybody have anything?
No.
109?
No comment.
Hey, when I read limited purpose, sure sounded like full purpose. I didn't catch a distinction between, but I'm not gonna,
Oh,
if it works for
would
everybody.
you like us to tell you?
Sure, just tell me.
Okay, so
30
limited
seconds.
purpose, sure, limited purpose allows us to annex certain areas, so we do that, Riverstone. We did that in Greatwood New Territory. So what it does is we limit purpose the areas of the commercial areas, and so we call it sales tax. And the city puts half in a bank account and gives half back to those buds and lets them do different things. So it helps pay off their debt. So when we did the annexation of Greatwood and New Territory in 2018, we said, okay, this is what your debt is. this is what the balance of your accounts are. Look at that. You can break even, because it is very important that when you annex an area, that the existing residents do not pay for costs for the incoming residents. You don't want them to carry the burden. And so as long as you come in debt free, because once we annex you, we're required to pay off your debts. So the limited purpose annexation is this, oh, you get sales tax. We're gonna pick you up for limited purposes, which is our sales tax, and then we get half.
On this line, but a side question, is the city of Sugar Land affected by the city of Houston imposing 1% sales tax in their TJ and extra areas?
No.
Okay.
Because, we have the city and you have ETJ, and state law sets just how far outside your city limits based on population your ETJ can expand.
Okay.
And so once you have that, you keep going until you bump up against somebody else's ETJ or corporate limits. And once that's yours, they can't put anything in there unless you agree to swap. So our tax is actually maxed unless we have special elections for like an additional hotel or special purpose tax. But anything they do does not affect us because we're in a different jurisdiction.
It's keeping for 1% or 1% of everything.
It's probably by agreement. Or they provide us, oh. I rather not know.
Okay. All right, anybody have anything else? I think we've hit the end.
Before you conclude, I do have a request. Are there any cities that you are particularly interested in having me pull samples as we go forward to say, hey, you know, what does San Antonio, what does Plano, what does Fairfield or Fulshire or any of these other cities do for these articles, so that when we come in and discuss them, I have samples for you. Woodlands. Okay, Woodlands is a township. They do not have a charter. They are not, they are the only township, it's an incorporated city by a township and charter.
Yes, I remember. Is there any, are there any cities similar to the Woodlands?
Oh.
Because I'd say, you know,
South Lake, North Richland Hills.
I would say same demographic,
Yeah.
same price point.
That's what I meant.
Okay.
If we were in a different part of Texas, we would go, ooh, oh.
Yeah.
We have a list of benchmark cities
Yeah.
that we compare our salaries to, but we also do, you know, based on cost of living. So we can
Yeah.
certainly pull benchmarks.
Yeah, I think we should always compare whatever we're doing here to benchmark cities. There's no
Okay.
point looking at someone that's completely in left or right field and go, well, they do that. Well, there's so many variables. We need to try and keep our scientific area.
I don't need to ask. So
No, I love
maybe I
research.
don't know what I'm asking, but maybe it will help. Do you think if it's concise enough, it will help us when we're, you know, doing our homework before we come to Article 2? If we have.
Oh, absolutely. So, what I'm gonna do.
Not that I'm asking for more reading.
No, you actually, I think you've like looked at my cheat sheet, my notes on how I want this, or how I did last time, and I thought it worked well, but I wanted to make sure you're happy with it. So what I do is I say, okay, well, we're gonna do the next article. So we've done Article 1, next time is Article 2. So prior to each one, I would say, do you have any special cities or anything you'd like me to look at? So you've given me the benchmark. I will do that for Article 2. I've also gone and looked at anybody who has had a charter election or is currently having a charter election going back to 2021. So Addison has had one, and Fort Worth had one, Georgetown did, San Antonio, El Paso, Dallas, and Fort Worth are currently in the midst of it. So I am getting copies of their reports as they post them, and I will bring you anything that applies to what we're looking at that week, or that section. If I find an interesting newspaper article related to it, I'm also gonna put that on your agenda as well. I will also come forward with a list of what the past history going back as far as you'd like, since we've been doing charter, what changes had occurred in that section. I can even drill down to the voting percentages if you get that, because this is something I really love to do. But that is what I would like to do, but if you have other suggestions of areas that would work better for you or additional information, either now or as we go.
Your idea was great, is we keep it at benchmark cities for everything,
Okay,
Yeah.
rather than, you know, wild one-off cities. If we keep it benchmark across the board, then we're kind of doing a consistent standard.
and I will ask if you will humor me on just one change, is that not all the benchmark cities have cycles of charter reviews. So some of these provisions on a benchmark may be 10 years old. And I would like to supplement with the ones that are currently in the process. You can say this is what recently been done.
And that would, I would support that one because that kind of fits the question around what trends are we seeing?
Okay, yeah, yeah.
So just to kind of be in touch with that, is what, so yeah.
As long as it's not like the city of Fulshire or something. Or Fresno or someplace, it's just so far out of our.
They have to be a charter city.
Yeah.
Yes, new home rule, and a benchmark for us would be similar demographics, similar population size, similar cost of living. We compare ourselves to everything. Every time we do a survey, we go, okay, what's these 8 cities doing, or these 5 cities?
So I think Beaumont is a pretty balanced, pretty equal to Sugar Land, if I'm not mistaken.
I will look at that, that's not on our benchmark
The
list.
last time I looked, I think Beaumont was
I
population somewhere around 75,000.
I will certainly look into that.
Okay.
Sure.
But I'm not sure if it's a charter.
Yeah.
This magic thing called Unicode, and I can look up every.
Yeah, I've got that website.
So
I've looked at it.
if something comes up on the fly in a meeting and you go, well, I wonder what this city does. I, or Shay, have this magical thing that has all the charters and all the code of ordinances for everybody in Texas.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it's
Research.
beautiful thing. I love research. I live and I like it. So, but if that is okay with y'all.
Yeah.
And not to brag, but I'm already in Article 3, so I'm like, I love my research. So is there anything else particularly?
So I had, well, go ahead, no particular, I had 2 questions to the people who called. So I still come back to, are there other groups or stakeholders that we think we want to, or maybe we keep thinking about, I mean, next meeting to come back, who else do we want to talk to? So I got the sense we haven't identified who else we want to talk to, other we can just talk to our neighbors. but-
So can I answer that just because I when you mentioned it, I held it back for when we finished discussing. Maybe we go through a few more because like you rightly said, this is just Article 1 is just getting our feet wet. But as we go through, if we find, oh, here there's something where that might help us identify who we want to include, because it's a balance, right? It's a balance on getting people involved who are willing to do the research and understand what we're asking rather than a debate session.
So I like that idea because it also allows us to be more familiar with the charter.
Yeah.
So that might inform us, oh, who else we want to talk to. So I like that's a good thought. Let's get more familiar, then keep that in mind. So we can always have another meeting of, let's invite these stakeholders, right?
Yeah.
Because I really
have as many meetings as you need.
Because I really like your idea about getting some engagement and more from the city, from people who live in our city. But at the same time, we want, like one of the council members said, we want people who've done some reading. And know
informed
some
on it.
stuff.
You can't get bogged down by
I agree.
talking to every single person we meet, going, what do you think? And the next thing you know, it's 6 months later. And we're
No,
still.
I agree with that. And I also agree there was a good distinction that was like the planning or economic development. And that kind of stuff that's going to help us on the charter. Their remit isn't different, the sandbox, right?
But it's still for us to ask and then go, this should go there, because they're gonna pass those
Yeah,
ideas.
so Daniel, I was gonna ask you if you're gonna, in your own HOA, if you were gonna have
As a matter of fact, I work with 8 different HOAs in the Sugar Land area. And I've actually put the word out that if anybody has any questions, concerns, or comments, feel free to reach out.
Yeah.
And that's probably about 60 HOA board members. That's the amount of response I've got.
Yeah, well, they probably don't even know that what a charter is.
I sent them links.
Yeah.
So as we were saying, we volunteered our time, we kind of got skin in the game. In the HOA side, nobody really complains unless there's a problem.
Yeah, I was thinking more of an educational aspect of it. This is what a charter, this is our city, this is what a charter is.
We put
This
it
is what
out to
it does
my
for-
personal HOA that, I basically put it in a board package. We're coming up to our annual meeting. I'm gonna invite some city council members and essentially kind of dialogue with the people that show up. But if you've ever been to one of your local HOA meetings, how many people show up out of how many people that live there? I've got 982 residents and I'm looking to get 2 people to show up.
Well, we have a little bit more turnout than that.
Just going back to what you mentioned about, engagement of other people, there are different ways we can do it as well. We can do, surveys, there are other ways we can do it as we proceed, so long as we know. I think as we proceed, we'll know
That's a good point.
areas.
We'll know more.
We'll know where we're going.
Yeah.
Narrow it down to
Good
a
point.
topic,
Like that.
and then not everyone has the ability to show up. But we could do, there are a lot of things that we could do.
We can use telecommunication.
Yeah,
Hey, there we go.
there are a lot of.
I'm gonna get him a taxi to come on over. No, good point. I like it. Thank you, Becky. It's a good point.
I've got, if nobody has anything else, I've got 6:11. I call the meeting to an end.
Second adjourn.
Adjourned. I think meeting is adjourned at 6:11. Thank you, everyone, for showing up.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Remember, I did have one question. When I look at the election list,
I hate to know how to find it.
are we, is there 4 districts